Are you tired of living a life you don't love? Do you crave more and find the pathway elusive? Well, welcome to the Intuitive Coaching Show with me, Ruth Wilson, the Intuitive Coach, and Dr. Pat, as we begin to discover your unique personal magic and easy steps to create that life you love, that life you crave. As a life coach, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive, I am passionate about helping you tap into your intuition and learn to work with your inner resources to use your energy to create a life you desire. You don't have to be positive, stuff your feelings, or spend lots of time and money on self-development, because during this show, we'll show you the how and why. Ready to turn crave into brave, desire into inspire, and catapult your life force full steam ahead in the intuitive coaching way? Call in, write in, plug in. The Intuitive Coaching Show starts now.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this journey with the most incredible coach, intuitive coach, joining me here today in her show, Ruth Wilson, the Intuitive Coaching Show. Today, we're going to talk about shades of intuitive guidance. This is such an important conversation because so often we hear people go so black and white on this, Ruth. Like if you talk to somebody, are you intuitive? Oh, no, right? I mean, we get this like, yes, no. It's the same thing when you ask people, are you creative, right? You're like, no. But it is not that simple because there's a complex nature to who we are. So today you want to call forth a conversation on shades of intuitive guidance. What made you think of this? And who are some of the people that you've really looked at that demonstrate that?
Well, I looked at all the geniuses in the world. And a lot of them, when I looked them up or when I knew a little bit of something about them, like Marie Forleo talks about, she always goes with her feelings. Steven Spielberg says his colleagues don't know why he chooses what he chooses, but he feels compelled to do certain things. All of these geniuses followed their intuition. And you said it wasn't that easy, it wasn't that simple, but I'm going to say that it is that simple. I'm going to argue with you and say,
Yeah.
it is that simple. We all have that. We just have to learn to accept the
Yeah.
information and know what to do with it.
Yeah. Let me walk that back. I agree with you. What I think is people in general don't think it's that simple.
You're right.
And so they
Mhm.
want to deny it, and yet they live it every day. Don't you
Yes.
think? Yeah.
Yes, they do. And you're following intuition whether you know it or not.
There you go.
So you might as well do it intelligently. Don't
And, you
use
know,
that magic 8 ball.
let's talk about some of these people for a minute because I really think it's important to share some of these stories. I was just doing a show with Daniel, and I just said, I cannot think of anyone in, let's just call it notoriety. And I'm especially struck by the Olympics. I just can't think of anyone, whether you win the gold or you don't win the gold, that hasn't demonstrated it or hasn't talked about it or hasn't alluded to it. I mean, what have you found when you look at the landscape of people, well-known people? What have you found?
I have found that if they aren't notorious for using intuition, it's probably because they haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
And when you ask them about it, they tell you, yes, yes. Well, I always go with that feeling. Well, that feeling is intuition, or they always, or often have a vision, like Einstein had a vision of sliding down this light beam, and he discovered that space was curved through that vision.
Yeah.
What in the heck was that? It was a dream or something, but it was, if that wasn't intuition, I'd be very surprised. He was extremely intuitive.
Yeah. So let's talk about this idea of trusting it, because the people that I can think about that trusted their intuition, I mean, I was just recently reading, I love sports and I love the Olympics, but I was looking at Ledecky, who just broke the world record, but made a decision on what event to be in and what not. And when you hear her talk about it, you don't hear her talk about a mental process for deciding it, right? She doesn't really come out and say, in my gut, I felt I shouldn't do both of these events. You don't hear it, but you hear it. Let's talk about why it is that some can follow and trust their intuition and others not. Now, clearly, Disney, Spielberg, right? So many others, you see this. Katy Perry's story is phenomenal. You know, when you think about down and out, never going to make it in music. My gosh, she was like, what, living in her car? I don't even know. But what? This song comes by, Kissed a Girl? Hello. Out she comes with it, contrary to be growing up with a pastor, pastor dad. But how do people trust? I mean, I don't want us to have a conversation today about being down and out, and that's when you trust, because that's not generally the sense of things.
No, no. And but being down and out is a test of your
It
intuition,
really
because
is.
that's when you say, okay, no, I'm not going to quit now. But I think there are a number of things that those of us who use intuition have learned to do. And one of them is get familiar with your feelings, or be familiar with your feelings. I think this is why it's so much easier for for athletes, because they're in their bodies all the time. Um, Request guidance, ask for it, ask questions. I think that's a really good way to prime the pump and get the information you want. Also, if you listen to the superconscious information that you get, well, what is superconscious information? It takes a lot of different forms, and you just have to get familiar with them, same as you get familiar with your text messages and your emails. So just learning to listen, and I say listen, it could be see, it could be feel, um, and test it out and learn to trust. I think some people who are very intellectual are afraid they're going to do something stupid based on intuition, but intuition is usually not asking you to bet the farm. It's usually suggesting you go down Maple Street instead of Elm Street. Um, and so you test it out and you learn to act on it carefully. And I often point out too, if you get it wrong the first time, you get do-overs. You'll get more information if you're listening.
And
But
let's talk about that for a minute, because this goes back to your topic today, which is shades of intuitive guidance. Because I love that you're looking at shades of intuitive guidance, because I think sometimes we think we get one shot. Have you often heard that? You get one shot, right? I have not had that experience when it comes to intuition. I have got multiple, multiple, multiple chances at it, even if I mess up. Right? It's not the kind of thing that, oh man, you didn't choose me. My feelings are hurt. I'm intuition. You hurt my. No, we keep getting it over and over. So, can you talk about that series of events, shades or phases that help us really tap into that guidance? And for some people that may not know, what does it look like? Is it always a Disney story, or is it something else?
it can be almost anything, which is why, I think a lot of people do need to just practice with it a little bit. Um, get into your feelings instead of trying to figure everything out. I have had a full-blown voice of my mother speak to me on the street in Detroit and tell me to move, and a piece of ice fell where I was. Couldn't get much clearer than that. And I was really happy that I heard that. She wasn't aware of what had happened, but I guess my intuition knew I would listen to mom. The other end of the spectrum, you could just get a funny feeling. It's amazing how many of the people who did not go on the Titanic, who talked later about, they just felt funny about it. One man and his wife flipped a coin to see whether her intuition or his would win, and they stayed off the ship. There are studies of subway accidents that have shown that people don't take their usual train. They don't even know they're having intuition. And that's why I said at the beginning, you don't even know if you're being intuitive, and you are all the time. And a lot of the time, it's just something in between there. It's, maybe I will go to that party even though I don't feel like it. And you meet your husband. Or, oh, maybe I'll go down Maple Street instead of Elm Street, and you avoid a huge accident. So it comes in many, many ways. My favorite experience was just a job interview I had for my dream job. Oh, my absolute dream job. I felt so sick to my stomach and I didn't listen to it. And that job, oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. And something in me knew. And after that, I I always check out my intuition. That doesn't mean I'm gonna take that advice immediately, no matter what. Like I don't think you're gonna run out of your sister's wedding because you just know something is on sale at Penny's that you want.
Yeah, yeah,
You're not gonna leave a board meeting to find something out because your intuition told you to do it, but you know, you are gonna take a look at it. You're gonna listen, you're gonna think about it, you're gonna test it.
yeah. And I love this because this is a body of work you do, Ruth. Let's just talk about this for a minute. As an intuitive coach, this is really a very, I can't say enough about this, and I'm just going to make it really brief. We are living in a rapidly changing world, and we're living in a rapidly overloaded information world. And I use the example of the Olympics because now you can now get any version, any day, any form by going to a certain channel, which is literally capturing everything that's going on there, right? And
Mhm.
so you watch how much information there is available. Now, clearly, if you're me, you cannot watch all of that. And so you have to decide something as simple as what am I going to watch? That's a combination of intuition and desire. And I want to ask you, as an intuitive coach, how to put those two together, because my sense is that they really work in harmony in some strange way. And let me give you an example of that. I want to manifest the job of my dreams. Let's just say that. That's a desire. But I don't want to settle and take the job that, in my gut, just for lack of a better word, I'm looking at these people and they are just not a good fit for me. But in my gut, you know it. And yet the mind wants to convince you you have to take it or you'll never get another job. So let's talk about these, because all the people we're talking about, the Disneys, the Spielbergs, Katy Perry, all of them have had a desire, an intention, and the difference between, and that I sense of what you said, the difference between taking desired and intention and having it come out to a positive outcome works for those that use their intuition, right?
Right. It really does. I think we've been taught to see what ticks all the boxes.
Mm,
You know, that job that I talked about, that ticked all the boxes. It had everything I wanted, except it turned out some other things that I couldn't really evaluate in the interview were not ticking my boxes. And so what do you do with that? And that's where it helps that I'm a practical person and I guide people in their strategies too. You can go back, you can ask for more information, you can go to an interview armed with questions that help you find out some of those things that have been issues for you in the past. So I think there are lots of ways to weave the intuition right into your logic. The other thing is the intuition almost always tests logical.
mm,
I've not had too much intuitive information or seen my clients have it that I can remember that has been crazy. It seems a little crazy maybe, but when they test it against, is this logical? Does this make sense? It usually is, or it asks them to take another option that doesn't really put them at a whole lot of risk. Sometimes, but not too much.
mhm. I want you to talk for a minute about what I think where the confusion is. And as the coach that you are, I'm sure many people come to you and they share their story or their scenario. But out of that story and scenario, what do you get a sense of? Maybe anxiety, maybe fear, maybe an obsession. You get these energies that come forth. And yet, some people have a real difficult time with discerning between, let's say, the energy of fear and intuition, right? I mean,
Right.
especially if you're that person that doesn't get on that train that day, right? It's not that you're afraid, but there's like this confusing energy. And I think
Yes.
people don't understand. Well, is that what I should be following, Ruth? Or should I be following this other thing over here?
Yeah, when do I listen? And when
Yeah.
do I stop being silly and get on the train? And
Yeah.
it's a very good question. And the answer is it never, well, I'm not going to say never, it almost never is super, super clear. But intuition usually asks you to do something, not to stop doing something.
Hmm.
So I had intuition that told me don't get on a plane. It didn't really tell me not to get on the plane. It just said, let's sit here a while longer, see what happens. And so I did. Intuition will tell you, take a different route. It might tell you stay out of that alley, but usually it tells you take a different route
Take a different route.
or go on the sidewalk. It tells you something positive to do, and it feels different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel frightening.
Yeah.
Intuition feels reassuring. This is going to be hard, but you're going to be taken care of. That it might be that kind of feeling. It might not be all sweetness and light, but it's usually uh, at its base, it's a good, positive feeling that things are going to work out.
I got to tell you, I woke up this morning and I have a friend that moved to Arizona, my really, really good friend, Ronnie. And we text back and forth, whatever that is that we do, right? People do this now, texting, hello. And I woke up this morning and I thought about Ronnie. I just woke up and I just thought, I got to connect. Well, I go to my phone and there's a text message from Ronnie. And I think these are some of the important things that happen to people every day, but they don't necessarily understand that energetic connection or that energetic insight. Now, what am I going to do about it? After the show, I'm going to call my friend. Um, these are the kinds of things that I want to talk with you about now. But before we do, how do people find out more about you, Ruth? How do they work with you? Please explain a little bit about what you do, because it's one thing to really work with a coach and get some very logical and linear things to do. For example, I have a financial coach, but even with my financial coach, not all of it is that. But tell me about what you do to help people and how people can connect with you.
Sure. I can be reached at intuitivecoaching.info, www.intuitivecoaching.info. And you can contact me for a free energy check. We can see where you are and what you may need my help with. I can do either a starter course, or a lot of people who contact me are already pretty adept at using their inner wisdom, and we'll do a monthly or weekly session where we just handle whatever they're doing and practice learning something new with it. With this kind of getting guidance, I would give someone um, classes and things to practice, and then real life challenges. Let's apply this to your life as soon as we can, because that's why you need it.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about practice, because we practice a lot of things, right? It's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a new dad. So I asked her, what are you doing? I'm practicing how to do diapers. I said, oh my God, like on your child? He said, oh no, I have a doll. I'm practicing. I said, oh, okay. He said, yeah, it's not as easy as you think, but now I've got it down. I said, what's the difference? He says, I'm overthinking it. It's really quite an intuitive act. And I thought, oh my gosh, what? Practicing diaper. But that's what he was saying. He's saying anybody can put a diaper on, but how to do it with a baby that's flailing up and down. It's not just about the mental faculty or the skill level. And I thought that was funny. I thought I had to share it today. Uh, Here's what he said. I can now do it with my eyes closed. Look, I'm making a statement. Please don't do that. Please don't change your child's diaper with the eyes closed. But you understand what he was saying to me. After
Yes.
the skill came the intuition in it.
We're talking about using more of the mind, the conscious mind, and the what's called the superconscious mind.
Yeah.
And the superconscious mind might not speak to you consciously, or it might give you an idea, or it might show you a picture when you're out walking. It might show you a billion different things, but we all have the ability, and we get so much better information when we look at more of it. The intellect is really great, but a lot of times it's wrong. A lot of things that feel like intuition when you're following your fearful feelings are based on childhood trauma
Yeah,
or something, and you don't want to make your decisions based on that. You want to make them based on intuition, and intuition is based on your desire. It's on what you want your life to unfold to be.
yeah,
And that's you at your heart, what you at your heart want your life to unfold to be. And you might not even be consciously aware of quite all that that can be.
yeah.
So
You
you get
know,
a full, rich solution. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, I mean, but what you're talking about, I want to ask you this question because a lot of times we think we have to have a condition. Ruth, I want to tell you, I can't remember, maybe 12 years ago or so, I was walking out of a meeting and I saw a woman stay behind at the meeting and she looked distraught. Now, I'm an introvert, so it's not like me to walk out of a meeting and stop. But I did. I stopped and I had a conversation with her, in a very long one. And we became the most incredible friends over time. And as a matter of fact, when my apartment that I had to move out of in the middle of double knee surgery, when that lease very unexpectedly ended, this person that I met on that day just happened on that day to find out her tenants were moving out. You see, these are the different shades of things. Now,
Yes.
had I not stopped on that day, first of all, I would have never gotten to know her. She's a very dear friend of mine. But somehow along the way, there's a pathway that intuition lays out. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, and that is hard to address because we see little bits and pieces of it mostly except in our own lives. And then this is the joy of getting older, is you can see a little bit of that. Oh, if it hadn't been for that, like the meeting I went to, I wasn't going to go to it one Sunday, and I went. Something said you got to, put on some lipstick and go. And I
Right.
went, and I met my husband. And if I hadn't met my husband, I wouldn't have had my son. And if I hadn't met my son, it goes on and on and on, and all the beautiful things that piled up on me in my life that would not have happened if I had not gone
Yeah.
there. And you might question whether meeting my husband was a good thing or not, but I think it was what I was supposed to do.
Yeah. There's so many of these, and really, let's encourage people today. I mean, this is a conversation where we want to invite all of you to really explore this. Explore it by being mindful, number one. You would be amazed at some of the things that will show up if you just become more awake to them. I love that you talked about your husband. Many, many, many years ago, when I was a teenager, I had a friend, and that friend had a friend. And my friend, all she would talk about is this other friend. That person, right? I could have blown that off, but intuitively, I had a connection to not my friend, but my friend's friend. To this day, she is the producer of my show and has been my best friend for a long time, and that's Linda. And you see, that's just one example because I could have blown that off. I could have not paid any attention, but there was something inside of me. And for a year, my friend talked about Linda and we never met. But there's something that calls to us. I would love for you to bring us full circle and talk about how can we encourage people to really be aware to these opportunities and then trust.
I think it's important to learn to notice and trust the nudges, the hints that can put you on the path to what you want to do with your life. And I think possibly, had you not met Linda when you did, you would have met her later. I've seen that happen too. So, like I said, it's not the end of the world if you miss an intuition, but boy, it's nice to catch the ones that you catch without too much difficulty. It makes life easier. It makes life more magical. And it brings you joy and happiness that you don't get from the same old everyday world.
Thank you for today. I want to ask you this. I think what you do and the way you coach is the tipping point now for the future of success, individual success, community success, organizational success. I think without it, there are going to be some that are able to move forward, achieve their goals, and some that are not. And they're not going to know why. They're going to really analyze it to death. They're going to look at the economy, and they're not going to really look at this. You know, can you please tell folks again how they can work with you? Because how often now have I heard this year the struggle, the angst, especially of entrepreneurs, and underneath it, it's the ticket that we're talking about today. So please let folks know how you work with folks, whether they be VIP status, entrepreneurs, or people really wanting to simply move ahead.
Yeah, we're entering a world that we have never seen the likes of
Never.
before. And intuition helps you get a fuller grasp of where you need to go. You can reach me at www.intuitivecoaching.info and ask for a free consult, and let's chat and see what I can do for you and what's the best way to work together.
I love it. Ruth, I can't say enough about what you do. I want people to know that there is a doorway that can be opened. And many people will say, it's intuition, just do it. No. If you're not guided, if you're not trained, if you're not in a safe space to work with a coach that will enable you and guide you along the way, it is extremely difficult to trust something you've never trusted before. And I think that's the doorway you're opening for people, Ruth. And I want to thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I can help people avoid a lot of pitfalls.
Pitfalls, what an understatement. We'll have to do a show on that. Because look, underneath all this today, I want to leave everybody with this. Here's something we didn't talk about that maybe Ruth will talk about. Do you know, or can you recall the times you didn't follow your intuition? Now, I rarely have a negative, positive statement like that, but recently I've looked at that and I made myself aware of what kept me from doing that. And 9 times out of 10, it was doubt and fear.
Yep.
It wasn't my intuition. Thank
Yep.
you, Ruth, for bringing the 50 Shades of Intuition to us
Thank
today.
you.
Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Thank you for tuning in to the Intuitive Coaching Show with me, Ruth Wilson, and Dr. Pat. Tune in and watch next time for easy steps for creating a life you love. Every first Thursday of the month, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 Eastern, on transformationtalkradio.com to turn crave into brave, desire into inspire, and catapult your life force full steam ahead the intuitive coaching way. Discover your inner magic and how easy it can be without censoring yourself or spending years on self-development. Move toward what you desire right now, the intuitive coaching way. For more information, connect with me visiting intuitivecoach.info.